It was a calm winter morning, and the faint golden light of the sun filtered into our sitting room at Baker Street, illuminating the quiet chaos of books, newspapers, and Holmes's chemical apparatus. I had been attempting to follow an article in the Times, while Holmes, with his customary detachment, perused a slim monograph on rare gemstones.
Look, Watson. Here lies an instructive example, an account of a jewel thief who failed because he ignored the simplest observation.
You never cease to find lessons in these reports, Holmes. Yet what intrigues me is how you manage to reduce matters of the most bewildering complexity to mere trifles.
Elementary, my dear Watson. A man must train his eyes to see and his mind to connect what others discard. Complexity is but the mask of ignorance.
And yet, I confess, I'm still struggling with that art. Every time I attempt to emulate you, I fall into error.
That is precisely why I persist in your education, Watson. Wish is not conjuring, it is discipline. Now observe, your boots carry faint traces of the reddish clay from yesterday's walk by the Serpentine. You did not notice it yourself, yet it speaks clearly to me.
By Jove, Holmes, I had not the slightest notion. You astound me every time.
And so, when a true mystery presents itself, the practice of noticing will serve us well. Ah, listen, that is Mrs. Hudson's tread. She brings us a visitor.
A gentleman to see you, Mr. Holmes. Says it's urgent.
The visitor entered, a tall naval officer with weather-beaten features and a look of suppressed anxiety. His uniform was impeccable, yet his gloved hands trembled slightly as he removed his cap.
Mr. Holmes, Dr. Watson, forgive the intrusion. I am Commander James Ellery of Her Majesty's Navy. I come on a matter of the gravest urgency concerning a jewel known as the Blue Water.
Blue Water, I have heard whispers of that name. Pray, enlighten us, Commander.
The Blue Water is no ordinary jewel, gentlemen. It is a sapphire of extraordinary size and purity, long kept as a naval trust. Yesterday, from a locked compartment aboard my ship, it vanished. I am ruined if it is not recovered.
Within the hour, Holmes and I were seated in a handsome cab with Commander Ellery. See, the frost of that winter morning clung to the windows as we rattled toward the docks by the Thames. I confess, my imagination was fired by the prospect. A jewel of incalculable worth, a theft upon a naval vessel, and Holmes in his element.
Gentlemen, this is the Dauntless, my ship, and the scene of this deplorable theft.
Remarkable, Holmes. The sheer order of a naval deck, yet within such order, a crime of the first magnitude.
Key, and that, Watson, is the paradox which interests me. A theft amidst perfect vigilance suggests either extraordinary cunning or internal collusion.
I fear as much. The Blue Water was kept in the captain's cabin, in a steel box with double locks. Only I and the first lieutenant had keys, yet the box was found forced open this morning.
But surely, Holmes, that suggests a most limited field of suspects. Commander Ellery ushered us below deck into the captain's quarters, where the theft had occurred. The cabin was orderly, almost austere, yet its every detail invited scrutiny under Holmes' searching gaze.
A crude instrument used, and in haste. This was no professional cracksman. Note the rough scoring here, Watson, and the fragment of metal still lodged in the keyhole.
By heavens, Holmes, you perceive all this from a mere glance.
Not a glance, Watson, an accumulation of small certainties. Observe the dust displaced on the carpet, scarcely disturbed elsewhere, but heavily pressed here. Someone knelt to ply his tool.
Then the thief must have acted in the night, when silence covered his efforts.
Just so. Yet why here, and why now? That is what we must uncover. Commander, who had access to this cabin?
Only myself, the first lieutenant, and occasionally the ship's steward when bringing supplies. No one else would dare.
Commander Ellery, pale with strain, wasted no time in summoning the two men under suspicion, Lieutenant Graves, his second in command, and the ship's steward, Mr. Finch. Holmes suggested that the mess hall would provide sufficient space and privacy for the examination. With measured tread, we made our way along the polished corridors of the vessel until we emerged into that long chamber where officers took their meals.
Mr. Holmes, this is Lieutenant Graves, and here's Steward Finch. Gentlemen, you will answer Mr. Holmes directly and fully.
Please be seated. I am less concerned with rank than with truths.
Narrating, I noted the contrast, the lieutenant with an officer's stiff bearing and narrowed eyes, and the steward, pale, twitching, visibly ill at ease. Holmes, with his piercing gaze, seemed to weigh both men as one might examine specimens in a cabinet.
Lieutenant Graves, let us begin. At what hour did you last see the jewels secure in the captain's safe?
Shortly after the evening rounds, sir. I verified the locks myself at 9:30. Off! The safe was undisturbed.
Steward Finch, when were you last in the cabin?
I brought wine for the captain's table at supper, sir. That was all. I never touched the safe.
The man seemed shaken, though whether from guilt or fear of authority, I could not tell.
Tell me, Finch, why do your boots bear traces of reddish clay when we stand upon damp cobble and salt-stained planks?
I went ashore yesterday, sir, only briefly.
Briefly, and yet the clay clings thickly, not the trace of a fleeting step, but the imprint of a prolonged errand. Where precisely did you go?
To fetch tobacco, sir, near Covent Garden.
And you, Lieutenant, did you observe Finch absent from the ship yesterday?
No, sir. To my knowledge, he never left.
That's false. I went ashore. I swear it.
Enough. The contradiction itself is valuable. Watson, note how truth resists alignment. The clay upon Finch's boots, the denial of Graves, one of them conceals more than he admits.
The interrogation aboard the Dauntless left my mind in turmoil. Finch's trembling denials, the lieutenant's stiff refusals, and Holmes's quiet absorption all seemed to form pieces of a puzzle whose outline I could barely perceive. When, late in the afternoon, Holmes suddenly declared that we must return ashore at once, I pressed him for an explanation, but he offered only that enigmatic smile which told me nothing and promised everything. Habs, may I not at least know where we hasten?
Patience, Watson. The clay upon Finch's boots was not of Covent Garden, nor of the Thames docks. It was from a garden soil unique to this quarter, red with iron. A careless slip betrayed him.
Then you believe Finch lied about his errand? Re-entered the dim stairwell of the lodging house. You really will. The air smelled of boiled cabbage and damp plaster, while the groan of old boards echoed beneath our steps. Holmes, with noiseless tread, led us upward until we reached a door faintly marked with the steward's name.
Ha ha! Here lies the heart of our matter. Observe, Watson, the wooden box locked yet light in the hand.
Could it contain the blue water itself?
Not so heavy, nor merely papers, perhaps correspondence. Yet even scraps of ink may speak louder than gems. Here, letters in a foreign hand, Italian, and see, this seal of a pawnbroker in Clerkenwell. The steward was entangled in debt.
Debt. Then perhaps he stole the gem to settle his obligations.
Too crude for that. The forced lock, the clumsy entry. These do not speak of a desperate debtor. They speak of a decoy. The true hand is more disciplined.
Then you believe Finch is but a pawn? That very evening, Holmes led us to Clerkenwell, where gas lamps glowed feebly upon shuttered shops. At the corner stood the pawnbroker's establishment mentioned in Finch's papers. Holmes, with quiet instructions, stationed us in shadow while he himself vanished inside. Narrating, the minutes dragged. I felt my pulse quicken with every passing sound, until at last the shop door creaked and a tall figure in naval greatcoat slipped within. Holmes's snare was closing.
Graves, by heaven, it is he.
In all the adventures I shared with my friend Mr. Sherlock Holmes, few rivaled the tension of that fog-drenched night in Clerkenwell when Lieutenant Graves slipped into the pawnbroker's shop. Bearing that fateful parcel, I felt the very air quiver with the weight of justice about to descend.
Watson, observe the parcel's bulk, its manner of unfolding. Yes, there, the blue water gleams at last.
By heavens, it is the sapphire.
Now, Commander, your moment. Confront your lieutenant and reclaim your honor.
Graves, you vile traitor, you dared betray the trust of the Navy.
I only meant to hold it as collateral. The debts, my honor was lost already.
Hours later, safe within the familiar warmth of Baker Street, I pressed Holmes for a full account. The fire crackled in the grate, and the sapphire itself lay upon the table, casting a faint blue radiance as if mocking the fog and shadows of the night's adventure. Holmes, you must explain how you unraveled the tangle so swiftly.
It was all, my dear Watson, a matter of exclusion. The lock upon the safe was forced with crude haste, clearly to suggest a common thief. Yet Graves possessed both the knowledge and the opportunity. He contrived to leave false traces and seized upon Finch's debts to deflect suspicion. The red clay was the pivot. Finch indeed bore it upon his boots, but it was not from Covent Garden as he claimed. It belonged to the very street where he lodged. Why, he lodged. The act, coupled with Graves's denial of Finch's absence, revealed collusion of silence and deceit.
Then Finch was guilty of weakness, not of theft.
Precisely. Graves preyed upon Finch's desperation, using his room and debts as camouflage. Yet the lieutenant's own arrogance led him to the pawnbroker, where his hands betrayed him with the sapphire itself.
And so, the blue order is safe again, thanks to your science of deduction. It was a crisp February afternoon in the year 1903 when I once again found myself seated in the familiar armchair at 221B Baker Street, watching the smoke curl from Holmes's pipe into patterns as whimsical as his mind. The fire burned low, and a faint drizzle whispered against the window pane. London outside was grey, but within our little sitting room, intellect and energy were ever ablaze. Holmes sat opposite me, cross-legged upon the sofa, his dressing gown draped around him like a monk's robe. His keen eyes darted from the newspaper to the chemical retort on the table, and then to me, which is one of those idle afternoons when his mind, deprived of stimulation, sought diversion in any form, be it an unsolved cipher, a newspaper oddity, or my own clumsy attempts at deduction.
Watson, said he suddenly, lowering his newspaper, you have that look of a man attempting to deduce the chemical composition of fog.
I was merely wondering, said I, how you can bear an activity so easily. Surely the brain, like yours, must chafe when idle.
Indeed, my dear fellow, the absence of work is the presence of torment. But patience, the game is never far. London, like nature herself, abhors stagnation. Within the hour, the bell shall ring, and the world will once again seek me out to mend its misfortunes.
Upon my soul, Holmes, I exclaimed, you might almost have willed that into existence.
Smiling faintly, elementary, Watson, I heard the hurried step outside 5 minutes ago. Only a man in distress walks so rapidly in this weather. Mrs. Hudson was bound to answer, and, yes, footsteps upon the stair. A visitor, most probably military, judging by the firm tread.
Mr. Sherlock Holmes, I presume? My name is James M. Dodd, late of the Imperial Yeomanry. I crave your assistance in a matter that has troubled me beyond endurance.
Pray be seated, Mr. Dodd. Oh! You have come from the country within the last 2 days, and by the state of your boots, from muddy ground, not gravelled.
Astonished. You're right, sir. I came straight from Bedfordshire this morning. How on earth did you?
Your boots, Mr. Dodd, the reddish clay upon them is distinctive to that county. But let us not delay with trifles. Tell us what brings you to Baker Street.
Holmes leaned back, fingertips together, his gaze fixed upon our visitor with that half-closed expression which meant that every detailed voice, gesture, even hesitation was being silently catalogued.
It concerns my old comrade, Godfrey Emsworth, sir. We served together in South Africa. During the campaign at Fontaine, he was wounded. Nothing serious, a bullet grazing his neck. We returned home after peace was declared. Since then, I had not set eyes on him. His letter ceased abruptly. His father, Colonel Emsworth of Tuxbury Old Park, writes nothing of him. I went down there myself, only to be met with evasion and silence.
You suspect foul play? I inquired.
Not murder, doctor. No, I could never think that of the old colonel. But something is gravely amiss. They say Godfrey is abroad, yet his mother's eyes filled with tears when I asked. The servants are close-mouthed as monks. And once, only once, I caught sight of her face at an upper window, pale as death, watching me before it vanished into the shadows.
A pale face at a window. Curious. Describe it.
It was Godfrey's build, sir, and I could swear the eyes were his, but white, terribly white, as though all blood had been drained away.
Holmes rose abruptly and paced to the window, his long fingers tapping the glass. Watson, this promises interest. We have a missing friend, a secretive household, and a glimpse of a blanched face. These, my dear fellow, are the beginnings of something worth our while. Mr. Shower, Dodd, when you called at Tuxbury Old Park, how were you received?
The colonel met me himself. A stern, proud man, his manner clipped as his moustache. He thanked me for my visit, but would say little. When I persisted, he grew angry, even threatened to have me removed from the premises. Only the butler, a grave fellow named Ralph, seemed disposed to help, but his eyes betrayed fear.
And you are certain Godfrey did not leave the country?
As certain as I stand here. His trunks are still at home, his horse stands in its stall, something holds him there, or someone hides him. No.
Softly, indeed. And you said he was wounded in the neck. A mere graze, you said?
Yes. The bullet barely broke the skin. He recovered quickly.
And after his return, did he complain of illness? Rash? Fever? Skin affliction?
No, none that I heard. Though now that you mention it, there was gossip among the men about certain cases of, well, leprosy contracted in the colonies. But that, of course, is absurd.
Holmes's eyes gleamed for a fraction of a second, but he said nothing. He merely took a long draught from his pipe and stood motionless by the mantel.
Watson, you perceive the significance?
Leprosy? Good heavens, Holmes, you cannot mean.
I mean nothing yet. I merely note possibilities. Isolation, secrecy, a blanched face, each aligns with that hypothesis. But we must not theorize before we have data. Mr. Dodd, you have done wisely in coming here. We shall travel down to Bedfordshire tomorrow morning.
You will go there? You will see the colonel yourself?
Undoubtedly. The truth, Mr. Dodd, is rarely far from those who look for it in the right place. Watson, pack your revolver and your stethoscope. Both may be of service.
Chuckling. You expect trouble then?
When men hide what ought not be hidden, Watson, there is always trouble.
Holmes sat once more, pen in hand, sketching diagrams of a house as Dodd described the grounds of Tuxbury Old Park, the winding drive, the walled garden, and the shuttered wing where no servant was allowed to enter.
Separate wing, locked and disused. Fascinating. And you saw the face at one of its upper windows?
Yes, sir. Just for a heartbeat before the curtain fell.
Then we shall start there. There is no riddle more eloquent than a locked door.
The evening deepened, and as our visitor took his leave, Holmes leaned toward me, lowering his voice.
Watson, observe the moral character of concealment. When a man hides his son, it is either to protect or to disgrace him. The difference between the two, my dear friend, is the entire problem.
And you incline to which view?
To neither, until I have stood upon that soil and smelt the air of that house. Tomorrow will tell us whether we deal with tragedy or deception.
That night, I scarcely slept. My mind replayed the soldier's haunted expression and the vision of that ghastly white face pressed against a window pane. Holmes, by contrast, was as calm as if he were anticipating a pleasant weekend in the country. It was ever thus. Where others saw horror, he perceived only data. Holmes, said I as the fiends rolled past, you think the colonel's secrecy may have some charitable motive?
Perhaps. It is possible the young man suffers from a disease whose mere name brings social ruin. In such cases, concealment may spring from mercy rather than malice. Yet there is something in the father's violence that speaks not of pity, but of fear.
Fear of exposure?
Fear of contagion, perhaps, or of scandal. We shall see.
The train thundered onward, and Holmes sat silent, his eyes half closed, fingers drumming lightly on the armrest, his mind clearly leagues ahead. reconstructing possibilities in that mathematical brain of his. I knew better than to disturb him when he wore that look. Whatever awaited us in Bedfordshire, I felt certain it would test even his formidable powers. And so began the strange and haunting affair which men have come to know as the adventure of the Blah. In Soldier. The train slowed as we neared the quiet market town of Bedford, the morning mist still clinging to the fields. Holmes sat motionless, his long fingers steepled, his sharp eyes flicking occasionally toward our fellow passengers, noting, cataloguing, dismissing. Mr. Dodd, on the other hand, fidgeted restlessly beside me, his military bearing unable to disguise the unease gnawing at his heart.
We can hire a trap from the inn at Bedford Station, said he. It's a few miles to Tuxbury Old Park, through lanes bordered by yew and oak. In know the house when you see it. Old brick, high walls, and an air of bloom over the whole place.
Excellent, Mr. Dodd. Such local description is invaluable. Watson, observe how military men note their surroundings. Practical, concise, and entirely accurate. I have long said the army is a fine training ground for detectives.
And yet, Holmes, said I, Trey, few soldiers would enjoy your kind of warfare, fought with logic instead of bullets.
Smiling faintly, both require strategy, Watson. Only the battlefield changes.
As we approached, the house emerged from behind a cluster of leafless trees, a somber mansion of red brick, its chimneys leaning like watchtowers over an expanse of lawn. High stone wall encircled the estate, and upon its gate hung a chain and padlock. Above it, the words Tuxbury Old Park were barely legible through the moss.
There, gentlemen, that is the place.
A fine example of late Trojan architecture, but not well kept, Holmes murmured. Observe the ivy climbing unchecked, the shuttered east wing, the neglected drive. Decay, Watson, is the first sign of concealment.
We left the trap at the gate and walked up the long gravel path. Even the birds seemed hushed. At last, a heavy oak door opened, and there stood a man whose stern countenance could only belong to Colonel Emsworth himself, a tall, angular figure in a worn military jacket, his grey eyes sharp as steel.
Mr. Dodd, he said curtly, you return once again and with company, I see. May I inquire the purpose of this intrusion?
This is Mr. Sherlock Holmes of Baker Street, sir, and Dr. Watson. They have kindly agreed to look into the matter concerning Godfrey.
Stiffly, there is no matter to look into. My son is abroad, travelling for his health.
So I have heard, Colonel, yet curiosity compels me to verify such matters for myself. Your servant, sir. He bowed slightly, his gaze unwavering.
There was silence, the sort that clings to confrontation like mist. The colonel's jaw tightened, but after a moment he stepped aside.
Very well, Mr. Holmes. If you must waste your time, come in. But I warn you, I do not take kindly to gossip or insinuation under my roof.
Nor do I, Colonel. I deal in facts, not gossip.
The house was as oppressive within as it had appeared without. The air smelled faintly of disinfectant, as though someone had recently scrubbed the floors. Portraits of stern ancestors glared down from the walls, their painted eyes following us as we passed.
Your Tate be in the study, said the colonel. I regret that Mrs. Bisses. Emsworth is unwell and cannot receive visitors.
Quite understandable, said Holmes smoothly. Smoothly! May I compliment you on your fine collection of military memorabilia? I see there the crest of the 34th Regiment. Your old command, I believe?
Somewhat mollified, yes, sir. Served in India for many years. My son was to follow me, but war called him elsewhere.
Indeed. South Africa, was it not?
Yes, a brave lad. Saved his colonel's life at Dryfontein, they tell me.
The colonel's voice trembled slightly as he said this. And I saw Holmes mark it! Whatever else the man might be, he was no monster, devoid of feeling.
Your pride in him does you credit, Holmes said gently. It must have been a cruel blow to lose him so suddenly.
He is not lost, sir. Merely abroad, as I have said. The climate here did not suit his constitution.
Ah, indeed. And where exactly is he travelling?
In southern Europe. I cannot recall the precise address.
Curious, murmured Holmes. One would think a father would remember his son's whereabouts.
Hublin. The colonel's knuckles whitened upon the armrest and his gaze turned cold.
Mr. Holmes, I have tolerated your questions out of respect for your reputation, but I will not have my private affairs pried into.
Then I shall not pry, said Holmes quietly. Only observe. Only observe.
With that, he rose and strolled to the window, his eyes scanning the garden. A faint path led from the terrace to the shuttered east wing, a small annex with its curtains drawn tight.
That wing appears unused, said Holmes. A pity to let such fine rooms decay.
It is under repair, the colonel replied quickly. The damp has ruined the plaster.
Ha! Damp, the most convenient of maladies, both for houses and for men.
There was no reply. The colonel rose abruptly, declaring he had business to attend to, and left us in the care of the butler, Ralph. Once the door closed, Holmes turned to me, his eyes bright.
Watson, note the disinfectant smell, the closed wing, and the colonel's insistence that his son is abroad. Each point alone is trivial. Together they form a pattern.
You still suspect illness then?
I suspect isolation born of shame or fear, and now I intend to confirm which.
Ralph returned to show us to our rooms, but Holmes detained him with a courteous question or two that, to the untrained ear, seemed trivial.
You have been long in this household, Ralph,
That 20 years, sir.
and loyal service indeed. You must have known Mr. Godfrey from a boy.
Aye, sir. A finer lad never breathed.
You must miss him sorely.
Hesitating. Indeed, sir, we all do.
And the east wing under repair, is it?
So the master says, sir.
But you, Ralph, you do not go there?
No, sir. I have orders not to.
Orders you obey with admirable discipline. That will be all, thank you.
When the butler departed, Holmes turned to me with a grin.
Watson, did you note his hesitation? He knows more than he dares to say. The fear in his voice was unmistakable.
And what do you propose we do?
We shall walk the grounds after dark. Men who build walls forget that eyes may still look over them.
Holmes, I whispered, if the colonel discovers us.
Then we shall apologize for admiring his architecture. Watson, look. Ha.
Well, I followed his gaze, and my heart gave a jolt. A man sat upon a bed, his face ghastly white, the skin stretched tight and pale as parchment, the eyes large and hollow. Yet even through that dreadful pallor, I recognized youth and strength. It was unmistakably Godfrey Emsworth. He saw us. For an instant, terror flared in his eyes. Then he snatched the curtain closed and vanished. Good Lord, I gasped. Holmes, that man, he's diseased.
Yes, Watson, diseased or believes himself to be so, the blanched soldier indeed.
Holmes stepped back, his expression grave yet satisfied.
We have our man. Now we must have our truth.
The wind howled through the trees as we returned unseen to our rooms. I could not shake the image of that ghastly white face at the window, the same that had haunted Dodd's memory, and now mine. Holmes, however, slept soundly, murmuring as he turned in his bed.
Elementary. The question now, my dear Watson, is whether his affliction be of the body or the soul.
Dawn crept over the Bedfordshire fields, a faint silver light slipping through the curtains of our room at Tuxbury Old Park. I woke to find Holmes already dressed, standing by the window, his sharp profile cut against the pale morning. He looked like a general surveying the field before battle.
Watson, said he softly, I trust you slept despite the ghosts of the East Wing.
I cannot say I did. That face, Holmes, it was dreadful. I've seen fever, smallpox, even the ravages of war, but never such pallor. What in heaven's name can it mean?
It means, said Holmes, lighting his pipe, that we are upon the threshold of the truth. But first, we must cross it without permission.
You mean to enter the East Wing?
Precisely. The colonel guards that place as a dragon its treasure. Therefore, there must be treasure of a kind, or shame. Watson, we shall see which.
Holmes knelt, producing a small set of keys from his coat, tools he carried as naturally as I did my medical instruments.
A simple mortise lock, he murmured. Such craftsmanship was made for honest men, not detectives.
The corridor beyond was dark, the floorboards muffled with thick dust. We moved cautiously, the scent of antiseptic heavy in the air. Suddenly, from a room at the far end, came a sound, the scrape of a chair, the low murmur of a voice. Holmes motioned me to remain still. Then, pushing the door softly, we entered.
Mr. Godfrey Emsworth, I believe, said Holmes quietly.
Startled. Who are you? How did you? No, keep back.
The young man leapt to his feet, drawing the curtain tight around his face. Yet even through the dimness, I could see how deathly pale he was, the skin on his hands white and waxen.
Do not fear us, sir, Holmes said gently. We come as friends, sent by Mr. Scent and Wisrister. Dodd, who believes you wronged or in peril.
In despair, Dodd, James. Dodd came here? Oh, what madness drove him to that? He must not see me. No one must.
You need not hide from us, said I. I am a physician. If you are ill, I can help you.
Help me? He gave a short, bitter laugh. No, doctor, my case is beyond your art.
Beyond medicine, perhaps, but not beyond reason, Holmes replied. You believe yourself afflicted with some loathsome disease. Leprosy, is it not?
Staring at him in horror. How do you know that?
Because you are being treated as a leper, hidden away, isolated, yet alive, a father's protection carried to cruelty.
You speak truth, sir. It is leprosy, or so they told me. I was wounded at Refontaine, and afterward a rash appeared upon my skin. The doctors in London said it was of the most dreadful kind. My father, he built this prison to save the family from disgrace.
My poor fellow, I said, stepping forward, that verdict may be false. Leprosy is rare and easily misjudged. May I examine you?
Ha 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 ha! If you wish, he murmured, lowering his hands with trembling courage.
I approached, my heart heavy with pity. His face, though pale, showed no ulceration. The skin, though blanched, bore none of the telltale scars I had seen in the tropics. The eyes were bright, not dull, the hair unthinned. I began to suspect the cruelest of misfortunes, a misdiagnosis. Holmes, I whispered, this is not leprosy. I would stake my practice upon it.
As I thought, he murmured. The question is, who told him it was?
What in God's name are you doing here? Leave this room at once.
You need not shout, Colonel. We have already discovered what you strove to hide. Your son lives, but unjustly imprisoned by your fear.
You dare.
I dare speak the truth. You have condemned this man without proof. Your household reeks of antiseptic. Your servants tremble, and your wife weeps in silence. Grace, Arwood, thought horridge. Panel is thought courage. Colonel, it is panic.
You do not understand. The doctor said it was contagious, that his presence might bring ruin upon us all. What was I to do? Let him wander into society to infect others, to destroy his mother's peace.
You were to seek truth, sir, not fear. Watson here is a medical man. He will tell you plainly this is no case of leprosy.
Indeed, Colonel, I see no sign of it. The paleness and irritation upon his skin are more consistent with psoriasis or an allergic reaction, perhaps from tropical medicine used upon his wound.
Weakly, you mean I am not doomed?
Most certainly not, my dear fellow. With rest and treatment, you will recover fully.
Voice breaking, God forgives me. What have I done?
You have done what many proud men do, Colonel, allowed fear of disgrace to outweigh justice. But it is not too late for repentance.
Turning to his son Godfrey, can you forgive your foolish old father?
Embracing him. There is nothing to forgive, sir. You thought to protect me. Let us forget these dark months.
The sight moved me deeply. Even Holmes, for all his composure, turned away for a moment, as though unwilling to intrude upon their reconciliation.
Mr. Dodd must be told at once, he said. He has suffered months of anxiety on your behalf. A letter tonight will bring him joy.
He shall be our guest, the colonel declared firmly. This house shall have no locked doors henceforth.
Holmes nodded approvingly. Yet his eyes, ever restless, fell upon a stack of medical papers upon the desk, correspondence bearing the name Sir James Saunders. Saunders!
Colonel, said he, you mentioned the doctors who pronounced this verdict. Was Sir James Saunders among them?
Yes, he examined my son last spring, a man of great reputation.
Indeed, said Holmes dryly, and of limited observation. His letters speak of a case observed under poor light, and a conclusion drawn from resemblance. The man mistook a harmless eruption for the world's oldest terror.
An error of diagnosis, and a cruel one.
The more reason we publish the truth, Watson. Oh! Men should not be made outcasts for the blindness of a physician.
Then you shall have my full cooperation. Whatever can be done to restore my son's name, we shall do.
You have my gratitude, Mr. Holmes, said Godfrey, his voice unsteady. Had you not come, I might have lived and died in that room, a ghost haunting my own house.
Nonsense, my good sir. Ghosts are born of imagination. Truth is born of inquiry. You were never dead, only mislaid.
Holmes's dry wit brought a faint smile to the young man's lips, the first we had seen. Hearably, the tension in the air dissolved at last.
Watson, he said, turning to me, a carriage to the village, if you please. We must telegraph Mr. Dodd before luncheon. His heart deserves rest.
And perhaps we might also telegraph Sir James Saunders?
An admirable suggestion. I should like to know how the good doctor accounts for such an error, though I suspect he will blame the light.
The rest of the morning passed in more cheerful occupation. Mrs. Emsworth, now radiant with relief, joined us at breakfast, her eyes bright though rimmed with tears. The colonel himself, humbled yet restored, presided with newfound gentleness. As we took our leave, Holmes paused by the great oak door and turned back to the colonel.
One last word, sir. Concealment is often a symptom, not a cure. Truth may sting for a moment, but falsehood poisons for a lifetime. Remember that.
I shall not forget, Mr. Holmes.
You look content, Holmes. Another victory?
A small one, Watson. Not of intellect, but of mercy. I have seen many crimes born of greed, jealousy, or revenge, but this was the crime of fear. And fear, my dear Watson, is the most human of all.
You mean to write of this case, then?
Perhaps. But not yet. Let the man live a little before the world hears his story. There is time enough for truth when healing is complete.
I nodded, watching the countryside slip past in silence. The air seemed brighter, freer, as though the old house behind us had lifted a weight from its very stones. Thus ended one of the strangest and most human of Holmes's adventures, a tale not of murder, but of misjudgment, not of guilt, but of fear. And through it all, the calm, keen mind of my friend, ever dedicated to the service of truth. It was 2 days later, and we were once more seated before the fire at 221B Baker Street. Outside, London's fog rolled thick and yellow across the streets, muffling the cries of the hansom drivers and the distant clang of the church bells. Inside, our familiar rooms glowed with lamplight and the warmth of home. Holmes was in one of his most reflective moods. His violin lay idle upon the table, the bow resting like a sword in its scabbard. He was reading, not from the newspaper this time, but from a letter, the crisp handwriting unmistakably medical in its neat precision.
Watson, said he at length, tapping the paper, our old friend Sir James Saunders has replied, and most indignant he is, I must say.
Indignant? You mean he denies the error?
Naturally. A physician's pride, like a colonel's honor, is a fragile thing. Listen to this. No human diagnosis can be infallible. The resemblance between early leprosy and certain tropical dermatoses is well established. A clever evasion, but hardly an apology.
The man's arrogance is astounding. I cannot think how any practitioner could pronounce such a sentence without full analysis. A microscope would have ended the matter in an hour.
Indeed, Holmes said dryly. But then he would have lost the thrill of his own importance. You medical men, my dear Watson, are apt to let certainty masquerade as science.
You're unjust, Holmes. We work with life and death. not mere puzzles.
Smiling faintly. True. Yet even so, deduction and diagnosis are but twin branches of the same tree. Both rest upon observation, and both fall when imagination overleaps the facts.
You would have made a fine surgeon, I said with a laugh. Your scalpel would have been logic itself.
A surgeon of minds, perhaps, Holmes replied, folding the letter. I prefer the bloodless kind of dissection.
Did you write to Colonel Emsworth? I asked.
I did, he replied gratefully, enclosing a note from young Godfrey himself. Listen to this, Watson. My dear Mr. Holmes, my color returns daily, and I find the sunlight sweeter than ever. The prison has become a garden once more. You have given me back both freedom and faith.
A fine letter. It must warm even your analytical heart.
A trifle sentimental, perhaps, but yes, there is something satisfying in setting a mind free from its own terror. The real disease in that household, Watson, was fear, and fear, once named, loses its power.
You speak as if you had prescribed it yourself.
I have prescribed only logic. The cure was compassion, yours, not mine.
I felt an unexpected flush of pride at his words. Ha ha ha! Holmes's praise was rare, and when it came, it carried more worth than a dozen medals.
Do you recall, he continued, that faint smell of carbolic acid in the corridor at Tuxbury Old Park?
Distinctly.
That, Watson, was the first thread. Fear always leaves its scent behind. The colonel had attempted to sterilize his shame as he would a wound. The disinfectant was his confession.
And the shuttered wing?
A symptom of secrecy. Concealment, Watson, is a physical act. Men build walls for their emotions as much as for their houses. Once I saw that, the rest followed inevitably.
You mean to say, I asked, you suspected the disease to be imaginary even before we entered the East Wing?
Imaginary? No, not imaginary, only misinterpreted. Nature rarely speaks in riddles. It is man who misreads her alphabet. The soldier's pallor, the father's panic, the butler's fear, all pointed to the shadow of leprosy, not its substance.
Then why did you not tell me your theory at once?
Because, my dear Watson, I prefer facts to fancies, and because you, being a medical man, would not have believed me without evidence. I needed you to see the patient with your own eyes.
You are incorrigible, I said, half in admiration, half in exasperation. You used me as your diagnostic control.
Laughing softly, quite so, and most effectively.
Another visitor?
Possibly the post, or perhaps fate has delivered a fresh diversion. I find I miss the countryside already. Dwasmasma.
May I come in, gentlemen?
Mr. Dodd, I cried, by all means.
Entering, beaming with relief. You'll forgive the intrusion, Mr. Holmes, but I could not rest until I thanked you in person. I've just come from Tuxbury Old Park. Godfrey is a new man. He rides again, laughs again. Even the colonel looks 20 years younger.
Excellent, Mr. Dodd. You have been rewarded for your loyalty. Few friends would have pursued the matter so steadfastly.
Loyalty, sir, is the soldier's trait, but I owe it to you both. I confess, I feared we might find tragedy there.
As did we all, but tragedy, when faced, often melts into farce. The human mind is capable of conjuring worse horrors than reality ever provides.
You might make a philosopher of him yet, Mr. Dodd.
Smiling, he needs no encouragement from me, doctor. He's already won.
Philosopher? Hardly. Merely a student of human error. You, however, Mr. Dodd, have shown a rarer quality. Faith.
Faith, sir?
Yes. You trusted your friend against the evidence of silence and secrecy. That, I think, is the true moral of this case. Not my deduction, but your devotion.
You flatter me, Mr. Holmes. Savage.
Not at all. You remind us that friendship is the one deduction that requires no proof.
Dodd laughed heartily, his broad shoulders shaking. Ha ha! It was good to see cheer return to that honest soldier's face.
I'll not keep you longer, gentlemen. My regiment awaits me in Aldershot. But should you ever need a hand in a tight corner, you'll find James Dodd ready.
I have no doubt, sir. Farewell, and give my compliments to your comrade, the once blanched soldier. There goes an honest man, Watson. The Empire may rest easy, while such men bear its standard.
And yet, said I, it was you who saved the day, Holmes.
Nonsense! I only illuminated what others had already kindled. A detective, Watson, is but a lens. He focuses light. He does not create it.
You make modesty an art form.
Modesty, my dear Watson, is the luxury of the contented, and I am content. For the moment.
He stretched his long limbs, his gaze drifting toward the window, where the fog swirled against the glass.
Tell me, Watson, how does your medical conscience feel after confronting a fellow practitioner's blunder?
Ashamed, perhaps, but also reminded. We doctors must guard against presumption as you guard against assumption. A hasty judgment can destroy a life.
Well said. There lies the boundary between science and superstition. Men call it progress, but it is merely patience dressed in reason's clothes.
You've the soul of a poet, Holmes.
Heaven forbid, he laughed. A poet reasons with emotion. I reason with fact. Yet, he paused, staring into the fire, even I must admit there is poetry in truth when seen clearly.
I said nothing. There are moments when Holmes's brilliance takes on a quiet melancholy, as if he glimpses some beauty beyond deduction, only to turn away from it as one averts the eyes from too bright a flame. Holmes rose, taking his violin at last, and began to play a slow, haunting air, a melody both tender and remote. The notes filled the room like smoke, curling through the lamplight, rising, fading, returning. That tune, Holmes, I don't recognize it.
I call it The Soldier's Return, he said simply. It seemed appropriate. Why? Why?
I watched him play, his head bowed, the shadows flickering upon his face. There, in that dim room above Baker Street, the great detective's music told the tale better than any words could. Of fear overcome, of friendship restored, and of truth shining pale but pure like the face of the blanched soldier in the moonlight. London lay wrapped in the soft grey mantle of early spring. The snow had melted from the rooftops, leaving the air damp and fresh, heavy with the smell of red cobblestones and horse leather. The streets glimmered under the glow of the gas lamps, and beyond our window at Baker Street, a thin drizzle drew long silver lines against the pane. Holmes sat opposite me by the hearth, his figure half veiled by a cloud of smoke from his pipe. The familiar room looked unchanged, the worn Persian slippers upon the mantel, the bullet-pierced initials upon the wall, the chemical apparatus scattered upon the side table. Yet something in his expression that evening told me the case of the blanched soldier had left more than its usual impression upon that analytical mind. Holmes, I said, laying down my pen, you've been uncommonly silent since Mr. Dodd's visit. The case is concluded, the man restored, even the colonel has made his peace. What occupies you still?
Leaning back, eyes half closed. Reflection, my dear Watson, the final stage of every experiment. I have been considering the peculiar disease of the human mind, its tendency to infect itself with fear.
Fear, you say? You've cured more cases of that than most physicians. Just means Fimo's working.
And yet it remains the most obstinate malady. Oh, consider Colonel Emsworth, a man of honor, courage, and military discipline. Yet one whisper of leprosy was enough to turn his house into a fortress of silence. He became both jailer and prisoner, terrified not of contagion, but of disgrace.
It is true. I confess even I shuddered at the word when first you uttered it.
Precisely, Watson. The strength of the illusion lies in the imagination. A man may brave a bullet, but tremble before a blemish.
You sound almost like a philosopher again.
Smiling faintly. Perhaps philosophy is only deduction without data.
And then the moral of this adventure, Holmes?
That ignorance, when combined with honor, is the most tragic of virtues. The colonel meant to protect his son, yet in so doing he condemned him to despair. Sir James Saunders, blinded by expertise, mistook a curable disease for a death sentence. Each acted from righteousness, and each blundered monstrously.
You are severe upon my profession. Touches!
Not upon your profession, my dear fellow, upon its practitioners. Science without humility becomes superstition by another name.
Holmes, there was one thing that struck me even in the colonel's house: the sense of isolation, the silence of that east wing, the closed doors, the muffled voices. It seemed more dreadful than the disease itself.
Ah, the geography of guilt, Holmes murmured. You see, Watson, men build prisons not for the condemned, but for themselves. The colonel locked up his son to avoid the gaze of society, but in truth it was his own conscience he could not face. Secrecy is the architecture of fear.
Then you would say that truth, even painful truth, is the only cure?
I would say it is the only antiseptic. Lies, like wounds, fester in the dark.
You speak almost as if you had suffered such isolation yourself.
A flicker of a smile. Perhaps every mind that seeks order must first endure solitude. Observation demands distance, and distance breeds loneliness. But let us not grow sentimental. It does not suit the scientific temperament.
And yet, Holmes, you cannot deny that even the greatest intellect requires a companion. Without it, you would dissolve into abstraction. Who would remind you to eat or drag you from the violin at midnight?
You, of course, my dear Watson, my moral barometer and my tether to humanity. Were it not for you, I should have vanished into the ether long ago, chasing phantoms of logic through the fog.
Then I shall consider myself indispensable. Drispinism.
Indeed you are. The partnership between reason and emotion is the only formula that consistently yields truth. Alone, each misleads. Together, they illuminate.
You make our friendship sound like an experiment.
It is, and the successful one, though its chemistry remains mysterious even to me.
Do you suppose, Holmes, that Colonel Emsworth will ever forgive himself?
In time, perhaps. Guilt fades where gratitude endures. He will look upon his son and see not shame, but deliverance. Suffering, when shared, becomes redemption.
You sound as though you've taken a dose of my own medicine. Compassion.
Smiling, a rare draught, Watson, but not without its curative properties.
I could not help laughing at that. Holmes, for all his cold detachment, possessed a warmth that revealed itself only in the quiet aftermath of a case, when the chase was over and the world restored to order.
There is one other point of interest, he said, leaning forward. You recall that curious note of Colonel Emsworth's first telegram? Private, for God's sake, come alone.
Yes, it struck me as an odd request.
It tells us everything about the man. In the very phrasing of a plea lies the shape of a mind. He feared exposure above all, and so he appealed to secrecy. In the lexicon of deduction, language is the fingerprint of thought.
You would read the soul of a man through a single sentence.
Through a single word, if need be. A misplaced adjective may betray more than a confession.
And yet, for all your precision, Holmes, you have an artist's sense of truth.
The line between art and logic is thinner than most believe. Art is simply the logic of beauty.
I smiled, knowing that this was Holmes's way of admitting a sentiment he would never openly express.
I think I shall keep this, he said. It serves as a reminder that even deduction must sometimes bow before devotion. Dodd solved this case long before I did, in his heart.
Then you concede that friendship may accomplish what logic cannot?
Not may, does. Logic unveils the truth. Friendship redeems it.
See, you surprise me, Holmes. That almost sounds religious.
If reason is a faith, then yes, I am devout.
It grows late. Shall I pour us a glass of port?
By all means, the occasion deserves a toast. To the blanched soldier, Holmes said solemnly, to fear defeated, and to the triumph of truth over terror.
And to friendship, I added quietly, raising my glass. For without it, even the brightest deduction is a lonely victory.
Spoken like a true chronicler of human nature, Watson. You may one day make something of me in those pages of yours.
And you of me, Holmes, for I have learned that behind every mystery lies not merely crime, but conscience.
Well said. Then let it be written, my dear fellow, how the adventure of the blanched soldier concluded not in tragedy, but in understanding.
I made a note of his words that very night, and as Holmes turned once more to his violin, I felt the quiet satisfaction of a case resolved, not by arrest or accusation, but by reason, compassion, and the unspoken bond between two very different men who, together, made sense of a senseless world. And so ends the record of that curious episode in the career of my friend, Mr. Sherlock Holmes, wherein the blanched soldier found his color again, and we, perhaps, found ours as well.